Hi clay friends, we are going to look at part 2 of building an animal, and this demo is a hippopotamus. And we're going to take a look at both the profile from a couple different angles, so we're going to refer to a little bit of our reference material. So the last lesson we made 2 pinch pots and put them together and then put 4 legs on it and then let that much set up. So this is what has been setting up. These are our 2 pinch pots here and our 4 legs. And the 4 legs, we just kind of tapped into level by putting a little board on and tapping to make sure it was all level. So this has been firming up overnight. I just had it loosely covered and let it set up overnight. So now it should be firm enough to hold its own weight so we can flip it over and look at it from all different angles. Yesterday, what we did was seal the 2 pinch pots. We cut the legs at an angle, and so when we attached them, it shows a little bit of the muscle running up into the body. And then we also ran a coil and blended that around there to make sure that the leg is attached really well and that it's a little bit wider. They have this kind of shoulder area and muscle, so that we made it look a little bit wider at the top, and we'll further refine and sculpt that as we go. So we're ready to flip this over and take a look at it from all different directions. So this is going to be my tail down here. We're going to cut this open and add a pinch pot head out here. But before we do that, we just want to take a look at it from all different angles. And so if we look at it from the side, we can see how the legs run up this way and the belly sticks out a bit there. So we can use our wooden knife to move some volumes around if we need to move some of that and make sure it's got that defined belly hanging out there. And then we want to look from the other angle too. It's important to turn it around to all different angles. So you can see by this angle, look how much that belly really sticks out, those legs. Now it depends on also if they're standing or walking. This guy's walking, and when they walk, they tend to put their feet in front of each other so the legs are closer together. When they're standing, they're a little bit further apart. But it definitely shows that this belly needs to be sticking out here way beyond the legs. So that might tell me that I need to use my wooden knife tool and either shave some off of this outside, or I can even just tap, 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 and make sure that the belly is what really defines this outer area. I didn't come up with the shoulder muscles yet on the front legs because we're going to cut this part out to add the head on here. So again, we're going to look at all different levels. We've got a rounded rear end here. They do have a little bit of a sway back to them, and we'll define that more a little bit later. So our next step, we want to get a head added, and that's going to be another pinch pot and a coil connecting it. And then we're going to let it firm up a little bit again before we start working on any details. So let's look at the head a little bit. They're pretty long. They've got a pretty wide nose. Oops, there we go. They're pretty long. It goes right into that shoulder area, so it's going to be really wide here. Got a big jawline here. It's elongated, and they've got a pretty wide mouth area and jaw that comes back there. So we're going to grab a ball of clay and work a pinch pot into that elongated shape. And we're going to keep that picture there as reference. I'm just going to wedge up. It's pretty, really wet scraps here. So we're going to wedge up some scraps and then make a pinch pot. And while I'm making the pinch pot, I'm going to be looking at the shape of that head and try and make it elongated, wide at the nose, and really stretch it out at the jawline. So for the pinch pot, I'm going to even start with, instead of a round ball, I'm going to start with a long piece of clay. So it helps if you kind of start with the shape that you want. So I'm going to push my thumb in, and then, like always, I'm going to pinch, move my thumb out toward my fingers and start to pinch and shape and pinch and shape, and then move up, 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 up as I go here. And we can give this some shape and definition while it's still wet. That head is really wide through here, and then it comes in a little bit here. So while our pinch pot is nice and soft, we can bring it in. And then it broadens out right here through this jawline, so we can really stretch, 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 stretch. So you can kind of see that starting to take shape there. Turn that all different directions there. So in this particular guy, again, it's using a reference material and using our eyes and really looking. But on this particular guy, we want to keep it wide through here. That's what defines them. Make sure it comes in a little bit narrow here and then widens out for this jaw down here. This clay is really wet, as you've noticed. So I would set this aside in front of maybe set it in front of the fan for a few minutes, or let it sit overnight. I made another one earlier today. This one's just been setting up about an hour so that I could show you without having to wait and let that harden up. So this one's a little bit firmer. I can handle it without it collapsing. So I'm going to hold this up. We're going to join this and add a coil right here to join the head to the body. That'll form the neck area. So I'm just going to go in with a needle tool and I'm going to cut this area. And this is why we would need the rest of the body to firm up before we do this. If I did this while these two pinch pots were still wet, this would just collapse. But it's been sitting overnight, so I can cut a hole into this now and have it not collapse. Here's also an opportunity, if you want to, now is a good opportunity to look inside, and you can go in with the rounded end of your wooden tool and make sure that that's all sealed inside there. And it's also one more chance to shape it. If I decided that I wanted my belly wider, now I can get in here with this wooden knife tool and I can blend that seam inside there, make sure it's all blended, and I can also stretch that belly out, give them a little bit more of a belly. I can also look and see if it's too thick in any place. Now's an opportunity to thin it out and make sure that it didn't get more than an inch thick any place. But for now, I'm blending it, making sure that that's all solid in there. And then I'll go in this way so you can see this way. I'm going to go in here to the side and I'm going to stretch this belly out. See if you can see that coming out there a little bit. So I'm just using the wooden knife tool to stretch that belly out a little bit to give it the shape that I want. And it's going to help. They have just a little bit of a sway in their back, so it can help shape that sway back. And then on this side, I'm going to stretch that belly out a little bit there. Make sure that's really defined. Then once you've got the body shaped up the way you want it, we'll go back to this neck area. We're going to use the good old serrated rib, and just dip that in a little bit of water. So I'm dipping that water, I'm going to slip that so that we can attach. We're going to attach a coil here, and that'll hold that head on there. So grab some wet clay here and roll out a coil. So again, for the coils, I just squeeze it kind of give it a head start. Squeeze it into a coil shape. All right, make sure we've got enough to go all the way around. All right, so we're going to work this coil. I'm going to slip and score this coil, and I'm going to use the wooden knife tool to blend it on both sides. So this is basically our neck area that's going to join our pinch pot head. So I'm going to join the inside and the outside with this wooden knife tool. And again, the same goal of we want to blend that seam so there's no seam. We don't want it to look like it's two pieces of clay. We want to blend it until it looks like it's one piece of clay. So I'm dragging clay from the coil down onto the body and dragging clay from the body up onto the coil. And it will get more blending once we add the head too, but so make sure to reach in there. Okay. Give this some water, dipping my rib in water and scoring that. And then this is the back side of the head. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to dip that rib in water and we're going to score that in all different directions. Oops. And now we have a decision to make. We need to decide where we want this head. Do we want him looking down or up, kind of straight ahead? Most of the pictures I've seen actually have them, the head sloping down just a little bit. So if I want it to slope down, what that's going to mean is that it's going to mean that I'm going to need an extra coil right here for this extra neck piece. So before I can join it, I'm going to have to add this extra coil right here. So I'm going to score this part of the coil, and then I'm going to blend this. Otherwise, he would have been looking up too much. So we're going to blend this both with the round end of our wooden knife, and then we're going to go over it with our serrated rib, and that'll get the head looking the direction we want him to be looking there. All right, we'll go inside and blend the inside. Again, being very careful to drag clay from the coil onto the body and from the body back onto the coil so that it looks like it's all one piece of clay. Okay, and I'm going to look at this from all different directions. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to have, actually I'm going to have a scrap of clay ready to support the head. In case this head's too heavy, it may need support while it dries. So I'm just taking a lug of clay, and I'm going to have that ready in case the weight of this head hanging off here is just too much for the wet clay that's connecting it here, because these coils that are going to join it to the body are such fresh clay, it's really wet, and so it might need a little extra support. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this board, and I'm going to do this all on a board so that when I'm ready to wrap it up and store it overnight, I don't have to pick it up and move it. So I can just set it up on a board, have an extra piece of clay ready to support the head. And the nice thing about using clay to support the head is as the clay shrinks, the clay that's the support also shrinks. So we don't need to worry about the clay sculpture shrinking and the support cracking it because it's not moving with the clay. So it'll move at the same pace as the clay. Okay, so back to our head here. See if that's getting closer to where we want him looking. So I'm just going to put a fresh coat of water and slip that up a little bit. That's getting better there. And then I've got one more coil here. I'm going to use one extra coil right through here to attach and blend that to the other coils that we had. So now I'm dragging both directions on this coil. I'm dragging some of the coil to the head, and I'm dragging some of the coil back to the body. So I'll lift this up close so you can see how there's clay from that coil is dragged both directions. So it's going both towards the body and towards the head. That's really important to get it blended so it doesn't, remember that it's two pieces of clay and crack later. I'm going under the chin. It's hard to see, but I'm using the rounded end of my wooden knife tool, and I'm going under the chin and blending under the chin. And I will most likely going to grab another little coil to blend underneath there also. So once I get the big chunks of clay moved around and blended with the knife, I go in with the rib and refine it a little bit. And the rib's filling in, again, it's dragging clay from the high points and filling in the low points, just giving a little bit better blend on there, a little bit better seal and attachment. I'm going to grab another little piece of clay here and take just a little coil, and I'm just going to run it on the underside of the chin here. And yeah, I can feel this is, it's such wet clay that we are definitely going to want the support. So I'm just going to squeeze that to the size I want it. And then I'm going to hold this up and look from different angles, and I can adjust this. I can squeeze that shorter or taller. So get it into the posture and position that you want. Might lower that down even a little bit more. So I'm going to squish the clay down a little bit and lower the head even a little bit more there. And then while it's supported, I can come in with a wooden knife tool and blend that coil that I put on the underside of the head. And then once it's firmed up, I can lift it up a little bit. I can lift it up and flip it over and go in with a serrated rib and blend it even better. But before it's dries or sets, I want to make sure that we've got good support and good seal all the way around. All right, so we can look at this from all different sides now. And remember, in sculpture, we're always starting with the big shape and working our way then down to the smaller details. So right now I'm just looking big picture, big shape is just getting roughly the shape of a hippo. And the other thing is, now that I've got the head and neck placed, I can kind of finish there's the muscle of these front legs. So the front leg muscle and shoulder go straight up behind the head. And so I couldn't put those on until I had the head on. But now that the head's on, I can just add a little bit of clay up here to reflect that shoulder muscle. The legs don't just stick into the body down here. The leg muscles come all the way up. So I'm going to grab just again, a small piece of clay and take a couple small pieces here. Not super big. And I'm just going to blend that in, and then I'm going to refine it later after it sets up. But I just wanted to, while it's all nice and soft, get a little bit more volume to reflect that upper shoulder of the leg, so the leg's not just like stuck on there. So this is my basic body shape. It's got the main elements that I need, and then later I can refine it and carve away. I can still add to it and carve away. But let me turn this all different directions for you. Kind of spin this around. This is my basic shape. And again, he needs to really set up before I can do too much more to him. So I'm gonna call this good enough for now as far as having a rough shape that I like. I'm gonna take this piece of plastic and just lightly cover it so I can leave it overnight now, so I can come back and start working on the details of this tomorrow. So good luck working on your animals. Don't forget to look at your reference material, and also don't forget, nothing's permanent in clay until we fire it. So if you don't love that head, you can chop it off and start all over. Good luck, and we'll talk to you later.